You can do better than that. Make some noise! That's what I'm talking about. Y'all look fantastic. Well, I wanted to bring up our first panel of the day. You lucky folks are going to be among the first to get a sneak peek at the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art. Now, this is going to open right here in Los Angeles next year. But first, are you ready for this? It is my honor to introduce our panel's moderator. You know who she is. She's an actress, a businesswoman, from amazing movies like Sin City, The Fantastic Four. Please give a very warm Comic-Con welcome to the incredible Jessica Alba! How you feeling? Hi. Thank you all so much for being here and coming out. I haven't been to Comic-Con in so long, and I felt like this is my home for so many years. I'm so happy to be here today to talk about the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art, co-founded by George Lucas and Melody Hobson, and opening right here in LA next year. Today we're going to explore one of our most human instincts, community, what brings us together and shapes us as a society, and what we're all here to do at Comic-Con, to enjoy visual storytelling. It's my great honor to welcome 3 extraordinary artists to the stage who have mastered this in ways that have shaped our culture. First, we have an artist who I am so lucky to work with and learn from. We are literally familia. He is a visionary filmmaker whose work, like the groundbreaking Sin City, brings the visual language of the people's art to the big screen. Welcome, Roberto Rodriguez. Next up, someone I am lucky enough to call a friend and collaborator. He is a creator whose work reshaped an entire industry with titles like Sin City and The Dark Knight Returns. He is a master of storytelling and one of the most influential comic book artists of all time. Welcome, Frank Miller.
Thank you, Ms. Green.
Finally, his work illustrates some of the most powerful and important stories of our time, depicting heroism, history, and the human spirit. He's created some of my favorite New Yorker covers, book illustrations, and beautiful album covers for artists like Michael Jackson and Drake. Welcome, Nadir Nelson. All right, it is genuinely a privilege to be on stage with all of you. I'm so happy Melody hit me up for this. I've always been fascinated by the power of stories. Stories are what hold us together and help us make sense of the world. Whether it's in a comic book, a movie, a photograph, or painting, visual storytelling allows us to connect with each other and share our experiences. I love that the Lucas Museum is dedicated to all forms of visual storytelling with an explicit belief that popular art, like illustration and comics, deserve a temple. Before we dive into our conversation, I have the privilege of sharing a special video that will give you a taste of what's to expect of the Museum of Narrative Art, a spectacular new cultural destination in LA surrounded by beautiful green space and gardens. Take a listen to co-founders George Lucas and Melody Hobson offer a sneak peek at the museum and its collection.
Art appears in many forms. Narrative is one. Stories range from hieroglyphics to comic, murals, illustrations, paintings, sculptures, music, and cinema.
The museum that we're trying to build here is one that you can take the whole family to.
George and I were passionate about creating a museum of narrative art because we both believe very strongly that societies are held together by stories.
When you see a rock, when you see something of yourself in there, no matter who you are, no matter where you came from, there's that little moment of humanity, corny as it is, that you recognize and you chuckle.
People with different interests, different ages, different backgrounds can be inspired. I think there's literally something for everyone.
If you present a child with a comic book, even if they've never seen it, they'll figure it out really quick. It doesn't necessitate the adult intervention to be understood, and I think that's extremely liberating. You know, it says, this belongs to you.
George Lucas has been collecting narrative art for more than 50 years. The founding collection represents more than 40,000 works by illustrators who have created images that give our society a shared set of beliefs. Shared beliefs create community. Opposing beliefs create chaos. Narrative art tells a story in itself. It's not how, it's why. It's emotional. Hunters worship animals, farmers worship stars, and capitalists worship money. Exhibits include Norman Rockwell, Jesse Wilcox Smith, Maxfield Parrish, and N.C. White. Comic artists include Winsor McCay, Frank Frazetta, George Harriman, Jack Kirby, and R. Crumb. Pieces by Frida Kahlo, Jacob Lawrence, Charles White, and Robert Colescott will also be on display.
This idea that art is in the eye of the beholder. It's actually a fundamental concept to what we're trying to do at the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art.
This museum, if anything, is a dedication to cultural fantasy, which is to sort of give some voice to the kind of what we would call popular arts, which we live with every day.
Myths are things that never happened but always are. The museum will show props and costumes from movies, cinema posters including documentaries featuring artists and filmmakers,
The building is its own form of a sculpture. It's spectacular to look at. The architect Ma Yang-sung is a genius, and I think he was the perfect partner for George in this building. Their creative minds came together in a very specific way that created a showstopper.
If the art is about the narrative, about emotion, and the experience should start when people come to it.
Architecture is a way of saying that narrative art is important.
Architecture is designed to create awe and build pride in the community. The 300,000-foot structure will feature 33 galleries, 2 theaters, a retail space, restaurant, cafe, a library, as well as an event venue.
I have great respect for George's vision. He thinks big.
George and Melody actually took me and my kids on a tour of the museum, and I heard all of our panelists here have gone too. Having seen it firsthand, y'all, we can attest to the fact that it's nothing short of amazing. So let's start with a question for each of you. Robert, what does narrative art mean to you? And Nadir, just so you can start thinking of your answer, how does narrative art shape society? And Frank, why do you think it's important to have a museum dedicated to this type of art? So we'll start with Robert. What does narrative art mean to you?
I started as a cartoonist. Why Frank and I got along so well. And I just know, by definition, illustrative art is meant, a single image is meant to tell a whole story. And I got that from Frank's work, which was, these images tell complete stories, and a lot of times, illustrative art is not considered fine art, which is why the popular art we all know, love, and consume, you can't find it in a museum. That's why George is always so ahead of the pack. He was ahead of the pack from the beginning on everything, from digital editing to physical filmmaking, and now showing art that museums normally do not show. Those museums are going to be so surprised when they see how many people fill up to see this art. It is stunning, and it's finally a museum for us. This is the kind of art that we love. And when I met Frank, I know you're going to be blown away. I got to see it. I went and saw it with George. I went into one room where they just had Xeroxes of some of the art up just to kind of show where they might place it. And even that gave me goosebumps to know that it's going to be the real thing there. Art we all know, love, and have consumed, that we have a connection to. That's what makes art. The art is the message, and it connects us. The museums get really highbrow about it, and they won't show this art because they don't think it's fine art. They don't know what you all love. George has always had his finger on that pulse. I'm so excited about this. I know it's going to be a huge success. And that's why, yes, absolutely, you're going to love it. You're going to love it. Unbelievable. Because this is the art of the people. Art should be something that people can identify with. And if it connects to you, it is art. And so when I met Frank to do Sin City, I knew the power of that page. I would stare at just a single image of his, and there was a better movie than it was in the cinemas on that page. His paper actors, his pen instead of a camera. And I said, I don't want to adapt this into a movie. I want to turn movies into this, because this is stunning, this is moving, and I connect to this. I just want this to move. And it's funny that you're here and Frank's here, it's kind of turning into an impromptu Sin City panel in a second. But you gotta know something. There would be no Sin City movie if it wasn't for George Lucas. because he turned me on to these digital cameras, which helped me eliminate the medium of film so that the drawings could just move. And I shot on green screen to really get back to the art, because I knew the power of narrative art. And that's why people were so stunned by what they saw in Sin City. It wasn't even like a movie. It was that graphic page that just was moving, but telling a story in such a powerful way. It was making more exciting cinema, visual storytelling on paper with pen than anyone was doing in cinema. That's why I knew it would really get people's attention. And when you go into this museum, you will see art piece after art piece after art piece that tells a whole story, and everyone gets a different story from it, because that's what it was designed to do. That is art. That is the highest kind of art, because it connects us and it speaks to us. So I've been following this museum since he first mentioned it, because I always follow wherever he goes, because he's always 10 years ahead of everyone. When he showed me digital cameras, I bought them that day and started filming with them. So I knew it would take the industry 10 years to catch up. Everyone's always playing catch up. They never learn their lesson. George always knows. He's Obi-Wan. Following him. So reach the promised land much quicker. So I can't wait for you to see this museum. I can't wait. And they said, you can come see it. I said, is there art up? No, not yet. I'll go anyway. The building is a work of art. There's no straight lines anywhere. It's just so inviting. You feel like you're gonna see the art come and speak to you. I'm just so excited. Had to come be a part of this to tell you, because I have seen it and I know what a visionary he is. And this art is our art. This is art. It's going to be your favorite museum. It's going to be the only museum you're going to want to see. And it's just going to be revolving every 6 months with different pieces. You're going to be it's going to be the thing to go do. And it's here in Los Angeles.
Nadir, how does narrative art shape society?
Thank you for asking that question. I think that one, it's an honor to be here with this incredible panel. Can you hear me? Oh, that's better. Is that better? There we go. Yeah. So the question really is about the image and the power of images. We as image makers have a really huge responsibility as people who create these images, because they are really the building blocks of our imagination, our evolution. Some of the first art we experience as children, these images, we understand them immediately, and we are surrounded by art that tells a story. It shapes our evolution, as human beings. So this temple, this shrine to narrative art, is really a really wonderful place for people to visit, because it is, as George said, it's the people's art. It's the art that connects immediately to people and tells a story. And everyone has a story. Everyone, all these stories, all these collective stories, our stories, make up our American story, our human story. So this is a really great place to experience that.
Awesome. I agree. Legendary Frank Miller, you're up next. Why do you think it's important to have a museum dedicated to this type of art?
I think what George is doing is celebrating, one of the very basic primal functions of the human consciousness. That is, back when we were living in caves and fighting a hostile environment, the one of the first things that people did was take clay and mark the walls of their caves with tales of the great hunt and various tribal battles and so on. There's a human desire to tell stories with pictures that goes all the way back. And you know, remember our written language all started out as drawings and got adapted down and turned into the symbols we now see as you know, as the written language. And what I think that George is celebrating here is something that is essentially human, that we don't share with any other species on Earth. And we are storytellers. And we make images and use them to tell stories. And you know, again, the simplest coloring book for children to the comic book, to the cartoon, to the loftiest cinema, are all, and including all the history of sculpture and oil painting, etc. All of that is the basic, primal, even savage urge to tell stories. We're all still telling the great hunt, and I think that George's museum is very much a celebration of that process and of that part of the human psyche. It's part of who we are, an essential part.
So the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art is founded on the belief that a society can't exist without a common belief system. And that art is how we share those beliefs. From your unique perspectives, how do visual stories, whether in a painting, a comic book, or a film, create that emotional connection that builds community and helps us understand ourselves better? I mean, anybody can go first or feels like answering.
I think it's precise. I think that art has its power regarding the community. Art has its power in how it affects the community, precisely because art zeroes in on the individual. It is experienced individually. Even if you're in a crowded movie theater, yes, you can hear the crowd reacting and sharing the reactions, but you're having an intimate experience with what the filmmakers have made. And through that intimate experience, we experience a kind of universality. We know what rejection is like. We know what love is like. All of these things are invoked in us. And when the person next to us pulls out a handkerchief, we realize what we're sharing.
Yeah, like art is the message. It can be pop, it can be myth, it can be pulp. The point is, it just needs to connect to you and move you, and that should be celebrated when art does that. And for some art to be sidelined because it's not considered fine art misses the point of art. And that's what Lucas Museum, once again, doing something no one else dares to do, is to let you have your own connection with the art that you have not been able to see, not been allowed to see. So, I mean, this stuff just grows in value to people because original art is just so precious, especially today. Everything can be done digitally. Or when you go back and you see a Frank Frazetta, which you can't see in a regular fine art museum. I used to bring them to Comic-Con because you couldn't see them, and people would lose their minds over it. One just sold for almost $14 million, one called Man-Ape that I used to bring here, because people see now how valuable those are. They just increase in value because they were done by hand and they told a whole story when you would look at it. Those paintings were like movies that you couldn't see. So that connection people have. Whenever I would meet people, whether it's a movie and they would tell me what connected to them, I'd be surprised by each person saying sometimes it was a piece of pulp or pop art that saved their life because they connected to it. You know, that's powerful. That art should be celebrated, and finally, it will be.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's, I can't really think of any other place where the art of storytelling in multiple mediums is celebrated and put into one place for for everyone to see. Very specifically, the as we develop as human beings, even before we can speak, we are absorbing images and we're learning and developing through these images, and it moves us. That's the aim that I think we're all looking for or pursuing, is to create images, celebrate images that tell our stories. So this is a really great showcase for that.
George has been collecting this art since he was in college. It always spoke to him. And there's a whole section about heroes, myths, legends. That's always been what George has talked about. That's why he created Star Wars, because to get your myths and mythology from popular cinema and art, you watched Westerns. And he knew that the audience of that era, the 70s, and they needed something new to believe in, and something new, a new way to consume that classic hero, myth, legend. And so he created Star Wars, and obviously it's still going on because people have a thirst for heroes and legends and myth. And for there to be a whole section of that with revolving art, I just want to, I don't come to LA that often, but I will now. Because I want to see this place. I want to see this stuff finally in person. There's something about original art that you just cannot replace. And when you see, I've been so grateful. I've got to be in the studio seeing Frank Miller create a piece of art.
Or in his trailer.
Yeah, but in his studio, he gets the ink and the brushes, and he's splattering it across the canvas. And you're just like, holy shit, it's huge. You're working on a big piece. And you see all the process. You see the white paint, you see the black, you see the ink splatter, you see the pencil underneath. And when you just see the printed page, it's still stunning. But when you can see the original piece there, you'll see the human hand. You'll feel even more of a connection to it. You thought you were connected to that art before. It's stunning. I used to cut out Frank Frazetta's books. He had these old Valentine books of his art, and I would have them on my wall. Well, now I have some of those originals on my wall, and I hold up the book to show people, look, this was the best book of his art. This is what I fell in love with. And then I reveal the painting behind it. I go, this is the real painting. And they see it, and they're like, oh my God, this looks like a bad Xerox compared to the original. So have you had a connection to this art before? When you see the original, you see the process, and you see the hand of the artist. It'll blow your mind, it'll connect you to it. And you've been robbed, you've never been able to see this. So now this museum's righting that wrong, and I can't wait.
Yeah, along those lines, George says he created this museum to celebrate illustrators who don't get the recognition they deserve. Frank and Nadir, what does it mean to you to have your works in a museum and to be part of the Lucas Museum's inaugural collection?
It's terrible. No, it feels terrible. It's just depressing. No,
Like
it's
super chill, like you, Frida Kahlo.
Yeah, right there. Yeah. Frida together side by
No,
side.
it's thrilling, and it makes me feel like again, it gets me back to the cave painters. It gets me back to the absolute roots of narrative art, which has really been the function of art from the beginning. And it's with these. A museum, I believe, is a celebration of storytelling, which is and he's and it wears it very proudly. It's quite an adventure to walk through the place, and it's in its early stages now. The walls are just starting to get things on them, but You start to see the shape of the place, and it's going to be like something you've never seen before. It's because nothing like it has ever existed. And to me, it's a liberation day for art.
I remember I would go to the comic book store, I would see a Sin City graphic.
Dear Star Robert.
Okay, well, I mean, in terms of being having artwork in the in the museum, I think most artists kind of dream of creating artwork that will someday land in a museum. You know, as we're sitting there, we're creating a painting, and we are moved by it. But art is meant to be shared, and this is a really huge place for the art to be shared on such a huge scale. And as I mentioned before, we have taken up the craft of storytelling, and to have our stories being celebrated in this way is really makes me very proud and very humble at the same time, because this is kind of the thing that I've dreamed about since I was a little kid. Going into a museum, we always want to see our stories on the wall. We connect with the subjects on the wall. Hopefully we'll be able to connect with the subjects on the wall. We all want to be that hero in our own stories, and we get to see that hero played out in 2 and 3 dimensions, on the walls of this museum.
So it's a dream come true in your life.
It is.
That's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
I like that. Art is meant to be shared. Yes, yes. So I'm going to tell you a story. My favorite story is about Sin City that no one's heard.
Which one, Robert?
You'll see. I'm hoping you can answer something for me.
Okay.
I'd go to the comic book store and I would see a Frank Miller graphic novel for Sin City. I'd go home and go, oh, I already had 3 copies. You just kept buying the same books over and over again.
I kept on doing those new covers.
No, it was the same cover. I was just always hoping it was a new one, because I was like, I was just so arrested by it. But Frank did something, talking about art being shared, really amazing on the movie. Each character that we cast, each actor played a character from this book. So as a wrap gift, as each actor finished their work, we would wrap them and send them off. But Frank, being so generous, would give them the most stunning wrap gift. It would be one of the classic original pieces of their character. So Jessica would get a Nancy Callahan, Brittany would get a Shelley, Benicio del Toro would get an Iron Jack, Bruce Willis got an amazing Hardigan, and you would see their faces when they were given these gifts of original art for their character, and their jaws would just drop and they would become little kids again at Christmas. I hope you still have yours. I wished I cast myself in the movie, because I cast Frank as the priest, and I thought, each time an actor got another stunning piece, I went, oh my God, I wish I cast myself as one of the characters.
Rodriguez.
Well,
I kind of gave you an original.
I know, so here's the big surprise. At the very end, much to my surprise, I was not expecting it. If you look up the original original graphic novel collection, first trade paperback of the first set of Marv stories, it's Marv in the rain, it's the cover, and this hard rain on it. It was huge, massive. He did it at a huge scale. He brought that up right, and I almost started crying. To see how the rain was done with the white on the black, with the ruler and the splatter, I still just stare at that thing. It is just a real work of art. So, since art is meant to be shared, I'm going to put it in the museum because you have to see it. It's because they're programmed to rotate, so that every 6 months you have to see this, because I cannot just selfishly have it for myself. Art is meant to be shared. And Jess, if you have yours, you should put it up for some time too. Because it is incredible. It is incredible. And to see his process, what I was telling you about, when you can see the hand of him making it, it just connects you even more. It connects you even more, and you'll go home and you'll find that suddenly you can do things you weren't able to do before, because you realize this really was done by a human and not just Zeus. It was done by somebody.
It's so funny because my relationship with Robert was I would come in and you know, I mean, I in my relationship with Robert on Sin City, he's an exceedingly generous director. I've got to talk out of school a little bit and tell you that some directors walk around like witch doctors and act like everything they do is impossible for humans to understand. Robert makes it all very accessible. And even I found he invited me into some of the most theoretical thinking about what he did. It's because the creative spirit has to be a generous spirit. Creative people have to feed off each other because otherwise we'll starve to death. And I really felt a brotherhood with Robert when I got on the set, and he got me over my initial intimidation and turned out to be one of the best teachers and best partners I ever imagined having.
Thank you, Frank. Very good. Now I'm ready for my learning from you. I was learning from you because I wanted to get back to that. So when I saw your books, like I said, the narrative quality of them made me want to make that. That's why I made you a co-director. Of course, the guilds and stuff say, well, he's not a director, he hasn't directed a film. So he's directing better movies on paper than anyone on celluloid. Look at these performances, look at these angles, look at this writing, this directing. He's using a pen instead of a camera. I said, oh, well, that's your opinion. So I quit the guild so that we could direct it together because I wanted the comic to move. And I knew that Frank was the only one who'd been to Sin City. And I didn't want to make a movie. I made a bunch of movies. I wanted to make a comic book that just moved for the audience. That's why y'all loved it so much, because it captured so much of what he was doing from this other world, this illustrative world. And it came as close as bringing that together, but it still had its filter. Now you can just go see the art in person and get moved the way I do when I see his work. So that was the goal. This art gets sidelined for the same reason they were saying, oh, well, he's not a director. Because people like to compartmentalize stuff. They don't realize what you all already know. It's why you come to Comic-Con. That this art is powerful, this art connects, this art brings us all together. Look at us all here for this. I can't wait to see the droves that are going to be at the museum.
The thing that stands apart with this type of art is the amount of emotion. I think that's why you all are drawn to the characters. That's why we are drawn to the characters. Frank, your work holds so much emotion on the page. And Robert, you brought that impact to the screen together so beautifully. Actually, what was wild is I thought I was, coming to work on a movie, and I know Robert as the director, so I would go to Robert whenever I was trying to get direction. Okay, so Nancy, emotionally, what's going on? I feel like it's this. And he goes, talk to Frank. He just kept saying, talk to Frank. So Frank gave me all of my emotional cues for Nancy the entire time. And Robert was like, I'm just here to technically capture what Frank wants. Period. Full stop. And it was like the most beautiful and generous creative experience. But then I realized how important that one still image of Nancy, everything, the layers that is going on inside of her, and every moment, it was the coolest thing to be directed by Frank, I have to say. So, emotion, yes. Nadir, Your illustrations somehow capture the emotions of our country in a single magazine cover. I mean, so many of them, actually. And I'd love for each of you to talk about how emotion is key to your art, and how vulnerable are you when you guys are creating?
Well, I mean, that's what we draw on when we're creating images. We have our own experiences, we have our own reactions to them, and for me, I really, that's the foundation of every image that I'm working on. So it's that's where I'm starting with the emotion, and then we use all the tools that we have at our fingertips to make that happen. Lighting, color, composition, perspective. All these tools help us accentuate the action, but the key is to keep that emotion central, because that's basically the yardstick that we're using, or I'm using when I'm creating artwork, so that I know that when it's finished, it feels the way that I want it to feel. Because if I feel that, then when I look at it, I know that viewers will have a similar reaction to it. So it's just a matter of bottling up all that energy and emotion and trying to distill it into this two-dimensional painting.
And it's always so aspirational.
I wanted to add to that.
Tell me, Frank.
The other thing is that the work that I do, for instance, most of the time, my comic books, is done in my studio, leaning over a drawing board, where I'm basically trying to act the characters as I'm drawing, and trying to get across emotion and so on. But I'm safe in my home, and nobody's watching me make funny faces and all of that. It was on the set that I experienced working with actors and saw how the good ones would peel back layer after layer of themselves, and you know, I saw Jessica do it, and where I don't know what she was doing inside her brain to get it, but she was flushed with powerful emotion and passion. I mean, it's one time where Mickey Rourke just completely, when Mickey Rourke's playing Marv with the corpse of Goldie, and he is just touching her hair and fussing around and acting really strange, and it breaks your heart what he does. And I remember asking him, I said, well, Mickey, where did he go? What was that? And he said, oh, my dog died last year. I was just thinking about the dog. And so that's amazing about your craft, is that you're able to access such deep wells.
So let's tease out the narrative aspects of your own work. This is a joint question to Frank and Robert. I mean, obviously Sin City holds a special place in my heart. It was literally one of the most incredible experiences to be part of. I also did most of my scenes with Robert, not even the other actors. And you, yeah, because they already know, but you're like also a very good actor, so there's that part. I don't think I really understood the impact of the visual language until I was at the premiere and I watched how it all came together on the big screen. The movie is defined by a stark, high contrast, black and white aesthetic with selective flashes of color. Frank, what shaped this narrative style? And Robert, what was the biggest challenge in translating Frank's work to the big screen?
Well, so many things happened by accident.
Okay. So I'll go first till I get some water. Yeah, the challenge was I remember just thinking, if somebody tried to make Sin City into a movie, I bet they would just make a regular movie out of it. It would look like any action film, any film noir film. It wouldn't look like the comic itself. And the look was half the story. How much he hide. I started as a cartoonist, I had a daily cartoon strip. And I would watch people reading the paper, and I would be over their shoulder to see when they get to my comic. And I would see them look at it, and you could tell they were just reading the dialogue, and then they would move on. So I started removing dialogue bubbles so that they'd have to study the art to get the point of the comic. And that was what Frank brought to me, was just, how can I capture that without turning it into a regular movie? And that's why we owe it to George. If George hadn't turned me on to digital cameras, I wouldn't have been shooting a digital 3D movie that same year. That made me realize when I looked at Frank's comics again, just to read them, I was like, holy shit, I know how to do this now. With digital camera, with green screen, I can isolate the actor, separate them, and if I run out of money, sometimes Frank just has like a little white square for a window. I can always just say, hey, it's true to the book. I want to make it as true to the book as possible. Strip away, there's actually an absence of information. That's a subtractive process. You're seeing less than ever, and you're getting more than ever, right? Because your brain fills in the rest. So that's what's so cool about what the movie tried to do, that his book does so well. You look at the book, there's a making of book that he has. It's one of his art books, where it shows all the colored pencil of, like, someone laying on a bed. And you see he drew the whole body, but then when he covers it with ink, most of that gets erased in black. And there's just a little white outline. So he takes it's a subtraction of information and a stylization of information. Like rain shouldn't be able to photograph like that, but because it exists, it just does. And that's what I loved about his book, and that's what I try to capture. The challenge was just technically how to make, like Frank Miller does in the book, how to get those bandages to glow white on Mickey Rourke, the shadow. I have to come up with tricks to make that happen, because that's what's so stunning about the book. And like the poster you're holding up right now, look how little information it has. That is right out of the book. So that was the challenge. And the only thing that solved it for us both was this technology that George turned me on to a few years before, that regular industry wasn't going to adopt for another 7 years. So we were way ahead of the curve because we followed George. And that's why that movie just came out and stunned people. Because the artwork, it started with the art and trying to be true to the art. And you're going to see art piece after art piece after art piece that does that for you in this museum.
The whole question about color in Sin City was it was a curious one, because I started out as a black and white purist. In fact, I decided it wasn't going to be black and white, it was going to have no pen lines, and it would just be black and white shapes. Well, I find any purist approach is really good for a while, and then you got to play. And then at one point I went, well, suppose I do a story which has a woman in a red dress, and use her shape to guide your eye through the entire story. And it worked. And from then on it became, start creating a character called Blue Eyes, and so on. Well, then I worked with this guy, and all of a sudden he wants to take that to a cinematic level. And we had an actress named Alexis Bledel, who had the most piercing, beautiful blue eyes you've ever seen in your life. And Robert decided that we had to have those eyes in the movie. And so he started pushing it that way, and then we started playing with it more and more. And that became another dimension to Sin City that I think added a lot. And more important than that, this applies to every inch of my partnership with Robert. Most important than that It was a whale of a lot of fun.
That was so fun about that is that in his books, I got that from his books. You read his books, they're black and white, and it's such stunning, stark, pure black and white. That's what the other challenge was, because in a black and white movie, a regular black and white movie is really gray and white. There aren't really pure blacks and pure whites. There's a lot of gray tones. Like if you were to photograph the color red, it's actually a mid-tone. It comes out kind of nasty looking gray. So we had to make it as stark black and white as possible. And when you'd be reading his comics, you just black and white, then he'd throw in a red dress. It's like you were starving in the desert and suddenly you got this oasis of red and you just eat up that red. So we started doing that more and more in the movie. I thought, hey, well, Goldie should probably have gold hair to differentiate her from her sister. And then Frank said, and I said, also, when the guys get beat up, I think it's fine for the bad guys to have black and white blood, but when Bruce Willis is bleeding, let's make the blood red, because it just looks like their face is dirty. Again, red just looks like gray. And then Mickey Rourke's beat up, let's put red blood on him. And Frank said, we're gonna be using color as a weapon. I like that.
Yeah.
I like how you weaponize words. It's so cool.
And also, it paid off when it paid off when Marv was electrocuted and the blood came out of his mouth too. That was a big payoff.
So Nadir, your illustrations, and this is my last question, unfortunately. I wish I could be here for another hour and you guys can ask all the questions as well, because this is freaking amazing. But Nadir, your illustrations often tell stories of African American history and heroes. How do you decide which moment to capture? And why do you think your images are so powerful?
Well, I think that a lot of my work in the past was based in history. So I was tackling subjects like the Negro Baseball Leagues, Black Cowboys, and so forth. But then the pandemic happened, and my work took a turn to more contemporary subjects. So I was telling the story of what we were all going through in real time. And in doing that, I'm thinking about what really connects us all, whether we are from whatever background we come from. So we all experienced the same thing at the same time. And we all have very similar reactions to them. And being someone who creates images, I had access to platforms where I could share those images, say, George Floyd or the protests, social distancing, and so forth. So all of these images spoke to, a lot of people all at once because of that, because we all experienced those we went through those experiences. We had similar emotional reactions to them. So I'm really just drawing on those feelings and experiences. And then when you put them in sequence, that's the power of sequential images. Whether it's in a comic book or a film, it starts to tell a story. So if we're looking at, say, even the Egyptian hieroglyphs, we can tell that story no matter, it doesn't matter that this took place thousands of years ago. We understand the power of images. So that is the power of putting all these images in one place, telling that story. In the museum, you do see Egyptian artifacts that speak to the hero from that era, and that hero really lives in all of us. We always want to be that hero. So we get to see all these images together in one place. And that's what's so exciting about this space that George and Melody that they're creating. We get to see it all together, all at once, so we can understand that whole that human story through the human timeline. So that's really exciting.
Incredible. The Lucas Museum is really going to be, I think, a huge place of inspiration for you all, the next generation of storytellers, creators, and for all of us to be inspired to build community Thank you everyone for being here today. This is pretty awesome. And thank you all for being here. What an inspiring conversation. All right, so without further ado, love you all, spread love. There's more that brings us together than separates us. Let's keep on with that message. And let's go to LA Comic-Con. Narrative art lives forever. Thank you.
Your art was the prettiest art of all the art.
No, how about this? Banned. Gone. Forever.